So today what we're going to be working on is our 1.1.2 review preview. And I wanted to be able to do this with you so that you knew exactly how I grade and what my expectations are when you are doing your homework. So for the first problem that we're going to be doing is 1-11. It says find the perimeter and area of each of the figure below. Review the math notes box in this lesson for help. Be sure to include the correct units for your answers. And so in our scavenger hunt, we know that the math notes are located in this double block right here, the double line of this box right here. And it does have the heading that says math notes right there. So methods and meaning math notes. So this one's about perimeter and area. And so I'm going to give you a heads up that our very first checkpoint that we're going to have is about perimeter and area. So if you're uncomfortable with this part, those kinds of things, make sure that you're doing all the homework problems with it. You should anyway, but pay special attention, maybe even work on it some more, get some help, etc. So it says right here that we can watch the video of an area of a rectangle. Most of those videos are black and white, no sound, just so that you know. They move kind of quickly. Sometimes they're helpful, most of the time they're not, in my opinion. But below that, what we do have is, it says the perimeter of a shape is the total length of the boundary around the shape that encloses the interior region on a flat surface. So they're giving you that definition. But if I didn't understand that, and frankly, the way this one's written, I think that when I click on this guy right here on the blue hyperlink, it pops up with a new definition. This one is, my opinion, a lot more clear on what the perimeter is. It's the distance around a figure on a flat surface. And to find it, you're adding it. It gives you an example of it. So if you're unsure of a word or those kinds of things, sometimes they are much more clear when you click on that hyperlink. Sometimes it gets even crazier in there. So it just depends on it, but it's certainly useful to look at. So we have these shapes. The one that's to the left right here, it is very similar to what you did in 6th grade where you had tiles and toothpicks. And the toothpicks are the perimeter. And then the one to the right is actually the same example, I think, that was underneath that hyperlink. So on this one, it says the area is a measure of the number of square units needed to cover a region on a flat surface. And so it gives us some examples of that. But before I go to the examples, what I'd like to talk to you about is a lot of times students don't know when they're finding these, when it's asked for area and perimeter, which one is it that's the inside and what you do with it versus which one is it called when you have the outside. And so the way that I remember this is if I'm walking around the perimeter of my property, if I'm walking the perimeter of my property, I'm walking around the outside edge. And so that helps me to remember that the perimeter is the outside edge that I'm adding together versus multiplying for the area, which is the inside. So on this shape right here, this is again just like the tiles. And so we can count all of the squares, all of the tiles, and see how many there are. And that gives us the total area of this, which is 11 square units. Next, it talks about different shapes. So a rectangle is a four-sided figure that has two pairs of parallel sides. So let me see if I can draw on this because you can't see my hands. So we have this side right here is parallel to this side. So that's one pair of parallel sides. And then you have these two right here, which is another pair of parallel sides. For a rectangle, you also have the rule of 4 90-degree angles. So in the corners, we have those 4. That's what makes a rectangle. When we have a square is a rectangle with one more rule, which is all of the lengths of the sides are equal. So to find, oh, I forgot, this is not my regular one. So when we go to find the area of a rectangle or a square, we're going to multiply our base times our height. And your base and your height are perpendicular to each other. They're going to form a T. So in this case, you can kind of see that rough looking T that I just did. So that's what you're going to look for, because then that'll tell you that what the base is and what the height is. Okay? There we go. All right, so for the next one, area of a parallelogram. A parallelogram is really, I wish it came first before rectangle, because it is a four-sided figure, again, and it has two pairs of parallel sides. So this side is parallel with this side is parallel with that side. So that's the rule. But the angles, the interior angles, these angles right here, they are not 90-degree angles. They could be, but they're not. Okay? So with that right there, because of that, we actually use the same thing, which is area is equal to base times height. When we have area of a triangle is half of a parallelogram. So what I usually do, I know what I can do underneath here. So the way that I do that is this. I have my, I gotta have some space here. There we go. So here is my, I got a little zealous, my special rectangle called a square. Again, to find the area that I'm going to multiply the length of my base times my height. And then what I want you to do is I want this. So for the area of this triangle, it is 1/2 base times height. So we have our base times our height, 1/2 base times height. So this is what they mean by it's half of a parallelogram. Because a parallelogram, this is also a parallelogram. We still have our two pairs of parallel sides. Okay? A trapezoid, similar in that we're still taking that same concept of finding the area of it is base times height. But the issue with this guy is that we have, oh, I didn't pick the right thing. Let's try that again. We have two bases that aren't the same length. So we have to change that. So we still have where we're going to multiply by our height. However, we have to figure out what, if the bases were the same length, what they would be. And the way that we do that is we take the average. And so we're going to add our first base to the second base and then divide by 2. And that's going to make it so that part of this side is going to be now up here instead. Okay? Now this part here, all of this should be review from 6th grade. But I know that this area in particular is a challenge for a lot of students. And I normally spend a lot of time on it when I do my intervention in years past. But this year, I just didn't, I'm not able to do intervention or an exploratory. And so I'm going to try to do the best I can with the time that we have. All right. So with this guy right here, we need to find the area and the perimeter for all three of these shapes. And we're going to do that on our notebooks. So here we go. Here's our notebook. Again, we've got a review preview. I did type on here to read the problem in the ebook. Be sure to read the math notes, which we did. Good news, it's homework. We actually can do it in any order we want. So I'm going to start with Charlie right here. And this shape, if you remember, is a parallelogram. Okay, so I'm going to start, I think, this time with area, because that's what we were just talking about. So to find the area of a parallelogram, we're going to multiply the base times the height. So our length of our base is 7. We're going to multiply that by the height. What's the height? Hopefully you said it is 3. It's this guy right here. This helps me to know that relationship of the t. So in this case, our t is going this direction. So my area is what 7 times 3 is, which is 21. So our units, we have yards right here, but it's not yards. When we're talking about area, the inside, it is square yards. So you can write it as square yards or 21, fiddlesticks. I'm going to do the perimeter next. So remember, the perimeter is the outside edge. I know this one's 7 yards, this one's 4. So this guy right here is 7 yards. And this one right here is 4 yards. So my perimeter is going to be 7 plus 4 plus 7 plus 4. 7 plus 4 is 11. So is that one. And my units for this is just yards because we're talking distance.